Hello, everybody in the world and in the universe and all of the universes that are out there. Hello, my name is Cory Lindholm, and I am joined by Michael Nadalin, and we are the PPC Unfiltered podcast. How's it going, Michael?
Mate, it's good. It's been 2 weeks since we've chatted, and that's too long. So we've got a lot to talk about today.
He's lying. He texts me all the time.
I know, desperado. Yeah, good, man. Good. As I was saying, it is the start of March now, and always at the start of another month, it's busy. January was really quiet in terms of clients just still being on break, and then February started to heat up a bit. We had 7 clients go live last month. It's crazy. So this month we've got a few more going live, and it's just about just like that balance between doing amazing works for existing clients, but then also appropriately onboarding and scheduling new clients as well appropriately. So
And
it's good,
having
man. It's
scalable
good.
strategies for that.
Yeah, man. So what about you? How's life?
It's busy. Lots of
Yep.
stuff. That's why we needed to take last week off. I was like, I had to cancel last minute, like an a-hole. You're welcome, YouTube. You don't have to censor me. I was really exhausted. So much been going on with my agency and lots of fun stuff, a lot of good challenges, and that's where growth happens. But the struggle is real, and so things are good.
Wait, something dropping there in the background? What's happening?
Yeah, I'm trying to get my lighting, trying to get my lighting fixed there. A little extra
Awesome.
drama.
Well, yeah. So another few weeks have gone by. More insights and more things that we've had to see and deal with. Once again, everyone, that Cory and I are on the front line. Even though we run our own companies, we're still working directly with clients and doing advanced level strategies and implementation. So every day is a masterclass. Every week is almost like a master's degree. So that's why every week we still come back. And whilst it might seem repetitive at times, it's probably because that's the most important thing. I've noticed more and more recently that everyone talks about having simplicity and implementing simplicity, but as you grow companies and you do something for so many years, you really do realize there are a few like absolutely essential pillars for business and for like especially advertising or Google Ads agency or just working with clients and just coming back to those and sticking to them no matter what, regardless of all whatever's online or the newest hack is. If you use the newest hack over like a fundamental truth, your clients and you will suffer in the long term. So just a little thing, if we sound repetitive, it's because fundamentals and simplicity is always what's going to win, because it does. Like Cory and I, our companies keep growing and growing. Yes, we're doing new amazing things, but it's because we keep refining that simplicity. So yeah, just thought I'd just add that in there. That's why we're being busy.
Exactly. Yeah. Look, I'd be bored if I was just like changing target ROAS all day like
Yeah,
that.
man.
I need to be pushing harder than that. So yeah, I've always got new stuff in the pipeline.
Yeah. Well, let's go into our first segment. You said you had something, and you haven't even
Yeah,
told me, so I
I've
might
kept
have
it
nothing to
secret.
say here.
So I wanted to just make it all authentic for you guys and just vent my frustration with something that I think goes really untalked about, unnoticed. I think maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure there's corners of the internet of PPC nerds talking about this stuff, but this is me very Google Ads specific. So, well, not really. I mean, but I'm going to focus it on Google Ads. So what I want to get into, Michael, that really frustrates me is to the uninformed, which in Google Ads expertise is surprisingly many.
Yes.
There is this thing called modeled conversions, right? Now, modeled conversions is very deceptive. And let me give you an example to really paint the picture. So, what was it? Late last week, I was with a consulting client. We were doing a sort of live, quick snapshot audit of the account, not super deep analysis. But when I was in the search terms reports, and I was going in there, and the client was mentioning how their cost per conversion doesn't look right. Something just doesn't seem right when they're in the search terms reports. They were kind of going through and trying to figure out really high cost search terms that were just wasting money, had a really bad CPA, whatever. Okay, cool. So we're looking at it together, and they go, see, yeah, look at that right there. Cost per conversion, it shows, I think it was like, I don't know, maybe like $100. Or no, sorry, it was $20. It was a $20 CPA, but the search term that we were looking at and filtering for showed $1,000 in the spend in the date range we're looking at and 10 conversions.
Okay.
So you don't have to be a math genius here to realize
Yeah.
that $20 is not a cost per acquisition for
Yeah.
that. It should be $100, right? The $1,000 divided by 10. So what's going on here, right? Like, is Google lying about the data? So this was the misunderstanding that I think really illuminated this topic for me to bring to you guys to say, like, wait, I don't think most people realize that these metrics, conversion rate included, as well as some other metrics, these include modeled conversions. In other
Wow.
words, conversions Google could not see due to privacy restrictions, technical
Yeah.
limitations.
Wow.
How deceiving is this for how many advertisers that do not realize that these are modeled conversions where these estimated derived metrics are coming from? So you might think, oh, yeah, like because you're briefly looking at it, you're not a data science expert or a data analyst or whatever. You're just saying, yeah, it looks like these search terms, just as an example at this data layer, are getting us $20 CPAs. No worries here. Moving on. But if
Yeah.
you had just looked at cost column and the conversions column and just said, wait a minute, that doesn't add up, you would have investigated. And honestly, even then, it's a little bit deceiving because you might look at the documentation. I actually pulled it up. I'm not going to be able to screen share because it's got client information on the screen. But if you hover over cost divided by conversion, the cost per conversion metric in the Google Ads UI, the first sentence you'll see is cost per conversion shows the average cost of a conversion. It's your cost divided by conversion. Great, right? That's exactly what I thought it
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
However, go 2 sentences down, and yeah, I'm really leaning into this because I think it's a little bit deceptive, and I'm not saying that Google's doing this on purpose. Michael will definitely say that, but it's a little bit sneaky. 2 sentences down, it says the cost in this metric only includes ad interactions that could lead to conversions. In other words, if
Wow.
they didn't think that it was cost data that would lead to a conversion, they're not actually going to include it in this particular metric. How deceptive is that? I
Whoa.
mean, so this is something I think just really goes unnoticed because we just assume that it's just a division problem that you're looking at, cost, right?
Yeah.
And conversions, blah, blah, blah. Conversion rate, same thing. If we look at it, it says ad interactions include clicks for text ads and views from video ads. This metric only includes interactions that could lead to conversions. Michael, how ridiculous is this?
Yeah. So just to confirm, in this case,
Mm-hmm.
they were under attributing spend or
Mm-hmm.
over.
Well, it depends on the
Yeah.
metric. It
Yeah.
depends on
So
the
in that
metric.
case, it sounded like if you spent $1,000, but then it said the
Mm-hmm.
CPA was $20 and you only had 10 conversions, it should be
Mm-hmm.
$200 spend. So has it gone out of that $1,000? We only attribute $200 towards what's happened. That other $800 just
It
it's
just
not relevant.
vanishes into real world. Yeah. Well, we
Or
couldn't
was
model
yeah.
that data. So yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
did it think that there was an additional, let's say there's 10 leads, 50
Mm-hmm.
leads, so 50 times 20 is 1,000. Do they model an additional 40 leads or
That's
4x additional
that's
potential
exactly it.
conversion?
So
So do you
this
reckon
is
they
where
over attributed? Okay,
yeah,
yeah, I'd love to.
this
Yeah,
is
okay,
the
this
this
is,
is the modeled conversions topic. This is what's so interesting about this is how are they allowed to do this first off? Because this should be a lot more clear. I think if
yeah,
anything, it should say cost divided by modeled conversions, not cost per
yes,
conversion, because those are two different things. It's too
yes,
deceiving. So conversion rate, that's another example. And just to really paint the picture, if it's not obvious at this point, if you were to just create a custom column, which I did in this case, almost just for humor purposes, create a custom
yes.
column, just call it real CPA. The cost per
Yeah, I've
conversion, I
actually
think, was
had to
like,
do that for clients before, by the way. But yes,
you know,
in other ways, but yes,
so you see when you do that, cost per conversion, I'm looking at right now, cost per conversion, $235. Oh, okay, for this client, it's actually not a bad deal.
yeah,
Real CPA, 1481, $1,481
yeah,
if you
wow,
actually do the clear division of cost divided by conversion. So, folks, this is a whole big deal. And again, I think this is really tricky, and most people will not notice this unless they are pulling the data into something else and creating and calculating those metrics themselves. They're going to really be
yeah,
tricked into thinking their cost per conversion, their return on ad spend, their conversion rates are something else than they actually are in reality because these are based on modeled conversions. So that gets me into what is going on here. What are these modeled conversions? So Google can only see what Google can see, right? So there's going to be privacy
wow,
restrictions, there's going to be technical limitations, devices, browsers, etc. Model conversions are Google's estimate. They're essentially estimated, generated estimates for conversions. So when the direct observation of the conversions is not possible per Google's documentation due to those privacy restrictions, technical limitations. They're going to give modeled conversions. So obviously the aim is to give them more people, everybody like this more, I guess, comprehensive view of campaign performance. They don't want, people under attributing what's happening. And so just understand that these are
So
not
just make it up.
conversions.
You don't want
Yeah,
to
so let's just make it
under-attribute,
up.
so let's just make it up. Like data
Michael,
modeling. What is this data
I,
being modeled off? Just data modeling.
just,
AIs, we don't
we don't
understand
know.
it. It's
Yeah.
smarter than us.
So, Michael, I did the calculation. I was like, okay, I'm just curious for this client because it's in
Yeah.
the medical device space. I was like, okay, I wonder what percent of these conversions are modeled versus not. Right.
Wow.
So 99% modeled
Whoa.
conversions for these derived metrics inside the UI. 99%. In other words, only 1% is what's, if you were to do the real calculations yourself offline, you were to pull that data out, you'd be
Yeah.
seeing a dramatically different derived metric across
Man,
the board.
this almost seems serendipitous because I've been releasing a lot of content recently on the MarketLead channel about using your offline data as your data source. So, like, not trusting the ad platforms. For example, let's just say you're pulling in data from Meta and Google Ads, and it says you got 200 leads, but you're like, I only got like 120 this month. Like, where are those extra 80? It's because the channels over attribute. And that's if you're pulling up the raw conversion data. And that's why I always suggest use your offline, like your in-platform clicks, impressions, cost data, like as your raw, and then
Mhm.
you use your offline data for your lead source data and sales, and then you bring them in. But this is another angle that is literally, I think this might be the biggest controversy in ads ever, because this is extremely misleading. Because
Extremely.
you think
Yeah.
about, uh, most people don't know about this. I didn't know about this, and now it makes sense because it's like, why do so many companies over time go, the numbers in the account look good, but our business is showing different
Hmm.
numbers or different revenue attributed to it? And sometimes the variance that I see in accounts that we do in terms of in-platform lead numbers versus offline data, where we've got the UTM strings, it's usually about like 8 to 10%. But that's still a big variance in any company. But this, when it's 99% modeled. So just to confirm, Corey,
Hmm.
just to make this really clear for a simpleton like me,
Sure.
when you're looking at the numbers, let's just say one search term said it spent $1,000,
Hmm.
and then it said it had only 10 conversions. That
Hmm.
$1,000 is still correct.
Yep.
That 10 conversions is still
Conversions is still
correct.
correct.
But that,
Yep.
let's just say it goes to a $20. It should be, and in that case, it should be $100 CPA, because 1,000 divided by 10 is 100, simple maths. But then next to it, it would just randomly say like $20. So like four times, like, well, 20% of that original value. So it was in the cost per conversion where they'd been doing the messy work. It wasn't the conversion column where it said, you got 10 conversions, but you'd really only got one. Had they overinflated in the conversion column as well, or is it just the cost per conversion column?
No. So the conversions column does show the number of conversions you received from whatever the video ads or the
Yeah.
text
But were
ad
they
clicks or
modeled, or
whatever.
were they just like the kind of, as Google measures it,
No.
as
That's
normal?
as Google measures it. Yeah. If you were to add a segment for conversion action, you'll see that it lines up with whatever conversion action is
Okay.
in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. But it's just
It's
the
those.
cost per conversion,
Well,
and then
it's some of
natural.
the derived metrics like conversion rates. This metric includes
Yeah.
only interactions that could lead to conversions. And it's 3 sentences into the description. It should be like disclaimer in red, like modeled
Yes.
conversions. It doesn't. It
This
just
is
says, yeah, this
wild.
is what it is. It's
Now,
absolutely crazy.
this was on, you mentioned it's on search term level. If you brought it up to the keyword ad group campaign level, did it move
Yeah,
up?
it's gonna be there's so many layers, as you know, to the reporting. I'm sure there's plenty of instances where this is going to be. I didn't take the time to investigate every little layer
Yeah.
because I'm creating the derived metrics outside of that. But I think this is my point was just to say, if you are looking at derived metrics inside of the UI, no
Yeah.
matter what layer you're looking at, campaigns, ad groups, whatever, make sure you are really clear on how that calculation is derived. And in this case,
Wow.
most people I don't think realize there's some modeled conversions going on in there. So Michael, real quick, I actually want to read when you go into cost per conversion, like we're talking about, and then you say learn more. If you go in there, there's a whole section. This is, of course, how Google can get away with this because legally, hey, we told you so. If you just
Yeah.
looked into it
We
yourself,
told you in the read more, the learn
yeah,
more section.
that nobody goes into. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it says conversions and related columns, right? Important. The conversions column shows you the number of conversions you've received across your conversion actions. Okay, conversions are measured with conversion tracking and may include modeled conversions in cases where you are not able to observe all conversions took place. You can
Wow.
use this
Okay.
column to view how often your ads led to customers to actions that you've defined as valuable to your business. That is crazy to me. I
Yeah.
get why they're doing it. They don't want people to undervalue, like in this case, a search term that, based on their modeling, is getting a lot more conversions than we can actually track. So let's just go ahead and say the cost per conversion is this. But
Yeah.
I think, Google, if you are listening, you need to put a modeled somewhere around that metric column name. You can't just put cost per conversion. That is so deceptive. It needs to say modeled.
Yeah.
I don't care if that's just MOD abbreviated, make it small and concise, but it is so deceiving if you don't do that. Personally, I think that that's wrong.
Yeah.
No.
I definitely think that there should be multiple layers to this. Number one, there should be like an account setting where you opt in for it. It's not like a default.
Agreed.
You get to opt in. So you're consciously deciding. Number
Yep.
two is they should just turn it into another column, which is cost per conversion or like conversions and conversions, including modeled conversions,
Mm-hmm.
cost per conversion, and then cost per conversions, including modeled. And
Right.
then also allowing in like those reports or those alternative reports just for you to have a graph or a table similar to where you look at the assisted conversions and the time lag,
Mm-hmm.
something like that, where it shows like your reporting based, like comparing modeled versus non-modeled. Sorry, like conversions raw, I'll call it raw, and the conversions with including modeled. But this is, it's just unfair. Like it's actually just unfair for everyone because it's just
Mm-hmm.
misleading because
It's very misleading.
ultimately Google would justify saying, oh, we're doing this because we feel like people's tracking is getting worse and because of they're
Mm-hmm.
missing all these data points that it's not enriching the data enough and we don't want people to make decisions in the accounts that are negative. That's how they'll justify it. It's always for other people. Reality is they want people to have Google to have as much attribute to any sort of action, so then it makes it look like, well, Google's getting our cost per lead for $20, let's just put 200 grand into it. Like it's just trying to like go like shortcut the old like, oh, this number looks good, let's put more money into it. Because that's how business owners operate. They go, this area of my business is getting a low cost per lead, a low cost per sale, a high return, put more
Mm-hmm.
money into it. It's just like a very cause and effect. They're not going, how's the data being modeled? How's our data accuracy? How are we tracking it? What percentage of our data is actually being captured? Is it 90%? Is it 50% because of the industry we're in or because of the platforms we use? Or most of our users are on mobile on this device and this browser which blocks the cookies off. Like they're not doing that. They're just going,
Right.
oh, we spent this much here. We got this much return. Let's put more money in.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, like, on for an agency level, it's going to make them look better because it's going to
Of
make the
course.
data look better.
Yeah.
It's not going to make us look like as in terms of market lead because most of our reporting with our clients is actually using offline lead data and offline
Mm-hmm.
sales data that has that's had a UTM attributed to it, which means there's a source attributed to it. So when we're measuring results, it's very like you spent this much from in platform, and these
Mm-hmm.
are how many offline like leads you actually got. Like you got 10 leads, like you actually received 10 leads, not like 12 that Google said or 13. And we know that it came from Google or Facebook or the appropriate channel as well. I think
Mm-hmm.
people really miss out on these things. And this is going to be another one of those gaps in business that when someone like you doesn't like finds this out, you get that edge because you're like, now we need to do a different sort of analysis. And then all your competitors are just going to be like, no, we're killing it, but they're slowly dying. It's
Yeah.
like people who are like, yeah, I'm like, I was hungry and then I'm eating a lot of sugar and like, yeah, now I'm full. But it's like the sugar will kill you. Like these false numbers, like those false calories and sugar will kill you.
Yeah.
That's what's wild about this. Man, this is I'm gonna have to go really deep with this because this
Yeah.
changes a lot. Now,
It's
once again, the
crazy.
benefit that I've really set up in the company is that we don't use the in-platform data as much anymore
Right.
for many clients, which is like
Yeah.
I've just done that purely just based on like it's more of like an IP strategic play. But now more than ever, I'm like, fuck, we've got to really be on top of this.
And just to really rub it in here, and my issue with this as far as transparency, and to your question about how many levels does that apply to and inside the accounts in terms of data layers, I am seeing I just looked at conversion rate and cost per conversion at the campaign, ad group, ads, products, keywords, and search term level, and all of them are using the description of this metric only includes
There we go.
interactions that could lead to conversions.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Wow. So, Corey, we've brought the information to the people and
Yes.
the people. What do you think the next step is? Like, is it really just creating new custom columns, at least starting off with creating custom columns for real
Yeah, good question.
conversions, real conversion rate, and real cost per conversion?
Yeah, if you're comfortable, just work. You like working in the UI, you like analyzing the data in there, just maybe because you don't have a lot of technical expertise, or you just for the speed of it, or it just works for you, whatever. Well, then yeah, I would. The first thing I would do is create some custom columns if you want to make it real, whatever, real CPA, real
Yeah.
conversion rate, whatever. I think that's a good idea. Call it whatever you want, or unmodeled if you want to be more technical.
Yes.
But just yeah, I think again, real big point to take away is always understand how a derived metric, like a calculated metric, is being derived. Don't just trust the name of the column. So that's really important. But yeah, I would start there, and then if you're someone that creates derived metrics through the API or inside of Google Sheets or wherever you create your dashboards, you're reporting from, just be careful about using the derived metrics that are coming from those data sources. I would really encourage people to create their own derived metrics from the actual metrics themselves.
Yeah, interesting. Now, just to ask again, Corey, when you look at the conversions column, because I'm not looking at it right now, does it say conversions include the modeled one? So if you create your, or is it just
so I'll read it to you. It's conversions shows the number of conversions you received after ad interactions from all actions you've included in this column. The included conversion setting for each action determines if the action's conversions are included here. Smart bidding optimizes the conversions in this column. Doesn't say anything about modeled conversions, but if you click into learn more, there is a section on the model conversions. So conversions are measures with conversion tracking. You can use different tracking processes, blah, blah, blah. Conversions can be tracked across different surfaces, such as mobile or desktop, and may include modeled conversions.
There we go.
Model conversions use data that does not identify individual users to estimate conversions that Google is unable to observe directly. This can offer a more complete report of your conversions. That is their sell point for doing this. This can offer a more complete report of your conversions. So yeah, it's very important, guys, to just consider all of these things that are actually going into the metrics you're looking at. It is probably including model. Now, just to reiterate though, you may or may not have modeled conversions, right? It's a maybe. If Google can't see, I think it's very obvious that more often than not you're going to have modeled conversions in there. And if we want to dive deeper into it, we can get into the model conversions documentation. There is literally a whole page just about that. So anyway, yes.
Look, if Google was just to do this appropriately, they should know that, let's just say you get 100 clicks from your ads and they go to 100 users' browsers, and then they model that 70% of them they can track and 30% they can't. I know this is not like, there comes to a point to a statistical significance. They should make that 30% represent the conversion rate of that other 70. But they're probably not. I can guarantee if you're telling me that 99% of those conversions are not modeled, it's not because 99% of the users' browsers are not tracking. It's pretty crazy. And this is where, when you pick up, like when you start working with a new account, if you're building it up from scratch, one of the first things you do is you make sure all the conversion tracking is done properly, being it the base pixels or base codes, and then also the conversion tracking. If you're auditing an ad account, the first thing you should do is just look at, hey, is the conversion tracking done properly? Because when you review any account, you're always looking at the outcome-based data, being it the conversion rates, the cost per conversion, how many conversions they got, regardless, and the revenue. If that's off, the input that you're going to give in your opinion or your insights or your recommendations is going to be off as well. That's why the first thing, and it seems more and more now, is like data purity is probably the most important things, more important than like strategic ideas, because if the data's incomplete or false, no matter how good you are, you're trying to fix something that's broken. Like you can't fix where the what's the kind of phrase I'm trying to say? It's basically you just can't fix it because like you're trying to fix something over here when it's realistically over there. And it's just like whatever you do, no matter how perfect you do it, you'll never do it perfectly. And I think this is a really important thing that people need to recognize now, that even the raw data that Google provides, even if you set up all the tracking perfectly,
Mm-hmm.
you know that the code's on all the pages and then your tracking's done perfectly, you've got the best developer in the world, still it will be incorrect and
Yeah.
incomplete because
Yeah.
there will be browsers who don't have it. And then Google's like, yep, well, we've got to model it. We can't just like leave this abyss of data, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Unfair.
It's crazy. Michael, I just shared with you these. Would you mind doing a screen share? We can cover really quick and wrap this up on what modeled conversions are for people. I'm sure this is going to get some people's heads spinning, and they're going to want to know.
Okay.
That is the link. So if you
That is
guys
the
want to
link. And
check that out.
I'll bring this up, guys.
This is,
Okay.
I should also mention when you pull data from the Google Ads API, you're going to get the same, like you're going to get the real. So when you calculate the conversions divided by the cost, you're going to get the real CPA when you use those sum metrics. But still, to Michael's point, how many of those conversions are modeled? It'd be
Yeah.
nice to get a little like metric in there
Yeah.
that we could really see.
Well, the
Maybe
way,
if
Corey, you're going to have to
someone out
do
there
it is
knows,
just like, once again, you're going to have to use offline data. That's why you need to be tracking your
Mhm.
offline data and be using UTMs and not just the Google Click ID, and definitely not
Mhm.
trusting Google Analytics. You've actually got to know that data from your backend CRM that should be capturing that. And then you can just do a basic export and look at it on a whole level. How many leads did we get from Google Ads
Mhm.
actually versus what the platform said? And then you
Mhm.
could even go down based on a campaign level, because your UTM should be showing your campaign, and then looking at what campaigns specifically are driving that. And then even to some points, maybe even placements as well. Like, are there certain placements that are causing that? So
So, Michael, real quick on this page, the third paragraph. Look at that first sentence right there.
this one,
Yeah. So when Google surfaces, I love that word they use, surfaces modeled conversions, we're predicting attributed conversions. In other words, guys, not real conversions, they're predicted. We all know how that goes with predictions.
in
Yep.
most
So
cases,
essentially,
Google will
yeah.
receive ad interactions and online conversions, but it is still missing the linkage between the two. Our modeling determines whether Google ad interactions led to the online conversion. It doesn't determine whether or not the conversion happened. Well, then,
Yep.
why are we doing it? We want to be converting, we want to be measuring when something happens, not when we think it happens, when it actually happens.
Yeah. So just like underlined is some of your conversions are make believe, probably because they're
Yes.
modeled. They're not what actual. I mean, again, I understand why they're doing it, and obviously they want people to spend more on
Hmm.
Google, and they want performance to look better than it might maybe is. But understand it's not necessarily a sale that's occurred there. Yeah.
Yeah. See, they say the benefits of modeling online conversion. They don't say the potential downsides or the
Yeah, what are the
cons, which
pitfalls?
usually is needed when you need to like weigh these things up. And once again, a
So true.
holistic measurement across all of your ad traffic gain a more accurate picture of your advertising outcomes and complete picture of the
Accurate.
conversion paths across
Is it accurate?
devices and channels. Doubt it. This
I
is the
love the word
one.
accurate.
This is the one, Corey, we were talking about before. Efficient campaign optimization. Model
Yeah.
conversions help you optimize your campaigns more effectively and achieve better business results.
Yeah.
Privacy regulations and technology limitations mean that we lose observation for certain cohorts of users.
Mm-hmm.
This
Mm-hmm.
means that our automation bidding algorithms will need to make optimizations based on incomplete data,
Yeah.
resulting in biased learning. Well, what about the way? What's more? I'd prefer to have something make decisions based on a smaller sample size of incomplete but accurate data than falsely enriched data. That's just like
Yeah.
it's just like going into woo woo land at that point.
It's a good debate. Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, because you could
As a
go either way
result,
with it. Yeah.
well, yeah, I think. Look, I think a lot of people who are actually good at this type of stuff, they're like, I want to be making decisions based on real data, even if it's less like, because in any area of business, you'll never have full transparency on every single bits of
No.
data. So this is another case. Just because it's digital and you used to have more transparency doesn't mean that like now it's like you need to make up stuff. It just means you've
But
got to
Michael,
adapt towards it and maybe get more conversion data in terms of actual real volume, rather than just going, well, there's a smaller sample size, so therefore let's just make stuff up.
well, I was going to say though, and then the next couple lines mention this. This is so important if you're using automated bidding, which most people are or felt like they
Yeah.
were kind of forced into. The models, those algorithms are going to use the modeled conversions. They're
Yeah.
not cheapening that. I mean, they're saying it right here. Modeling solves for these biases and corrects them. Where is it right there? Yeah. So right there, you just had it. Yeah, they have a
Yeah.
lower reported performance, leading to overall poorer performance by the bidder. So yeah, Google's going to say, well, we want to give our algorithms more data to work with, even if it's artificial data, essentially. And our models predict, who knows with what degree of accuracy. Like, what's the p-value here? Like, what are you guys actually
Yeah.
going off? Is it 80% confidence? Is it 60% confidence? We have no transparency on that. Could be 20%. They're just like, yeah, I think there might be some conversions here. Who knows? We just think so. We have a hunch. Let's go with it. Let's feed the algorithm with that. Meaning your smart bidding could be going off the rails and you're wondering why, and it's
Yeah.
because the modeled conversions are just super inaccurate. It's very possible, but you won't be able to see that. There's no transparency there. It's really
Yeah, this
unfortunate.
is hectic. Just have a look here. Yeah, this is hectic. Look, mate, I think this is something that everyone needs to look into.
Yep,
And yeah, this is bad.
it's bad. We don't want this. We want
We don't want
transparency.
this.
Allow me to
Excellent.
at least choose use modeled, don't use modeled. If I get worse performance, at least I'll know that it's based on real data and not modeled artificial
Horrible, mate.
conversions.
Okay, well, let's wrap up this segment. We'll
Okay,
do our last segment. Thank you for sharing all that, mate. So
of course.
now we're going into our next part, which I was mentioning earlier. And this is kind of something that I've been noticing a lot, especially in companies that have either marketing managers internally or companies that, from direct previous experience working in agencies where there's a specialist team and then there's like an account manager who's like a project manager essentially who's dictating the strategy. Now, this is a big issue where it's just like you don't get this, like you need to stress test everything. Basically, if there's a strategy idea, people just assume, oh, because the strategy sounds good, or there's like, it seems like, oh, that sounds good, that it's going to be number one, executable, and number two, deliver results. So now I'm just noticing more and more and more and more that things I see online, content and strategies, they sound amazing from a strategic point of view. But when you actually go, well, how do we execute this? That starts to drop down significantly. And then when you do execute it, the actual results that come from it are probably minuscule. So
Hmm.
we're challenged because most people in the marketing space are strategists, not implementers. They're like
Oh yeah.
most people who implement don't put themselves out there because they're usually more like introverted, analytical, like they just do the work. Versus
Mhm.
strategists are probably more likely to go out there because they're client facing, they're doing other work. So there's a natural bias towards the type of people, and then that starts
Yeah.
to create the difference. I'm seeing, I don't know why it keeps happening more and more, but I'm like seeing more and more strategies that I'm like, yes, this sounds good. But then intuitively, I'm like, it doesn't work because I'm doing something like different that's actually delivering results. And like, I know this, I can say all this stuff hand on heart because I am a strategist. I work directly with clients, but I'm also an implementer. And I also do all the data reporting as well. So I can go, yes, this works. No, this doesn't. And I get to apply it
Mhm.
across dozens and dozens and dozens of clients. So rather than just going, yeah, well, it didn't work for that one client, so it doesn't work. I get to like test it across multiple industries, multiple clients, the strategic point of view and the implementation. And man, like I'm just saying this to people, like stop believing what you see online. Like you just got to stop it. Like stop thinking that this next strategy, this next hack, this next script is going to change anything. It's actually not. Like all you're doing is feeding attention to someone who's wanting to get your attention to ultimately sell you or get you as a client. But these strategies don't work. Like if they did, show the data over a big sample size of clients, show the data across like a time frame as well, and to show the data in terms of the revenue that it's actually generating, not just like, oh, we got the impression share up or cost per click down. It's like, well, what was the cost per lead impact? What was the cost per sale impact? What was the revenue impact? Like we've got to actually start thinking about all of this stuff in the bigger scheme of business rather than just like some vanity metrics in accounts.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I think it goes back to critical thinking skills and, this sort of shiny object syndrome. And we've definitely talked about it before, where it's very easy to get addicted to the cycle of new content and some new hack or strategy or whatever that sounds really interesting. And nothing against necessarily putting out free content like that. Obviously, you probably have. I mean, there's a means to an end. You're trying to attract clients, or people that are going to pay you money for something that you offer. But at the same time, we always harp on: is it going to be practical? Is it actually going to be? Is it something you've actually tested, or is it just an idea that you have? And I think again, that's the critical thinking around it, and not just as a content viewer, but also as a content provider. If that's something you're doing, I think it's from an ethical standpoint, it's better, and people also trust your content more when you say, this is a strategy I'm trying. Here's what we're seeing. Here's early results. You're giving disclaimers like, hey, it's a small sample size. This is the date range. You're being really clear. If you look at any kind of research study, you're going to see all those little nuances because discerning eyes can recognize something that's been well documented, well researched, and they're going to trust that a lot more than someone that just says, I saw something, what was it, yesterday? It was like 90% of people don't use remarketing or something. I'm like, where are you getting that from? Like, are you like, again, that's just like clickbait, right? It's like, there's no reference, there's no source there as to like, where are you getting 90? Would you have access to everybody's account? How do you know the 90%? It's just BS. It's just clickbait BS. And it's trying to get attention, but I don't think that's, again, I talk about the ethics a lot from a content strategy perspective. It doesn't really help anybody. I mean, maybe you're justifying that, well, not enough people do remarketing, so this is my way of really pushing that. But who hasn't said that? I mean, everyone said that 100 times. There's nothing new there. You're not sharing anything innovative. And I think that I'd love to see more content that's innovative, that challenges assumptions, that has well-defined boundaries of a test and what are the results of the test. Not everything has to be like that. Not everyone's going to be that interested. And obviously, the most popular content is usually going to be some kind of cheat sheet, shortcut, hack, whatever. So if you're trying to get the most clicks and views or engagement, you're going to probably avoid that type of content. But I think there is a whole topic around ethics in content creation, and this kind of speaks to that. Yeah.
And look, beyond just people wanting to build their businesses, I don't mind that, but you got to realize like you're actually just wasting people's time. You're wasting their focus. You're wasting their energy. Like that's the spot where I have like zero tolerance towards people wasting my time or my focus. Like you've only got certain amounts of like mental RAM every day, and you're being pulled across all the tables, being like, you should do this, you should do that. Oh, you haven't done this. This is the newest big hack, but it's like this is my approach to anything. Is it simple? Number one. If it's complicated, it won't be implemented. Number two, is it practical? Can actually something be done, or is it just another theory? And then number three is, does it actually deliver results? And you can kind of stress test that pretty fast with a lot of things. You just go, well, this doesn't seem simple. It seems quite complicated. And that's sometimes not an issue. When it comes to the practicality, like we're talking about strategy, when people have strategy ideas, it's like, well, how do we implement this? And like, don't get me wrong, you shouldn't always go, oh, how do we implement it? So then you stop having new ideas. Like start with new ideas and then go, okay, this is a really good idea. How could we implement it? But the challenge is a lot of people have ideas that don't have the actual technical expertise to implement it. So then they're just passing on this like burden to someone else where it's like, this could never have been done. Like the idea is good, but you shouldn't have told the client that we're going to do this because like, how am I supposed to do this? Like there's a lot of, it's like saying, I remember hearing years ago from a friend that a CEO said to a client, oh yeah, like they missent out an email to their database. And they go, yeah, it's fine. Like before people open the email, we can actually change the code in there and it'll change like all the stuff. It's like, no, you can't do that. But I think he'd heard from someone that it could be done. It's like, no, these things can't be done. Like we've got to come back to really like The work that we're doing, whilst it can be hard, it's quite simple and it is extremely practical. Like this, because the data, or after our last conversation, maybe the data is not there, but because we have more data transparency than any other channels and platforms throughout history for advertising or marketing or even in business in general, we have the ability to just simplify it so we can just go, okay, this is what the data is showing. This is what we can do practically with it. We don't need to be reinventing the wheel with so many things. We can evolve naturally by doing the things we're doing and notice, okay, there are gaps here for this client. Let's explore that. But trying to do these big things, sweeping just from a random idea from your sample size of 5 bad clients that you've had, it's no way to start. Like, it ruins the way the industry can operate. And, it makes people cynical. So then when they come to us, they're like, yeah, I've been
Yeah.
burned by agencies, or these people said all this
Yeah.
stuff. And I'm like, fuck, man. Like, I
Yeah.
get it. I get it. But it also means those clients never leave us because we just do what we do and then they stay. So anyway, thought I'd share that. A bit of a rant.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, there's our rant room. We haven't had one in a while, so that
Yeah.
was that's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just what are your thoughts? Like, because you said before you don't really go on LinkedIn, but you saw me like something the other day, but I know you're just kind of getting a bit fed up of it because you're actually doing the work. When you just do the work and you go deep and you're working directly with clients, you don't need hacks. You don't need a new strategy. You just like be
Yeah.
present with them and go, where's the gap here and what can I do to help bridge that gap?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm focused on implementation. I've got enough work on my plate as it is. I think there's the benefits that I see mostly to social media for any kind of technical expertise is sharing things that have actually worked well that have been tested. I think that's always great, and you can prove that, like we said. New things that not everybody has, like maybe it's beta tests or new features or new things in the account. Something that's like interesting and useful. If they just like renamed something, that's really that's not
Yeah.
that useful. It's like, okay, great. I probably would have figured that out on my own. I think that's always good. It's something that's really innovative. Not to toot my own horn too much, but when PMAX first came out, I was like, man, how do we figure out? I think it was maybe placement, like metrics by placement, and I figured out the only way I could do it at the time, outside of the API, was to go and build a Google Ads report, like in the report editor section. And I was like, oh, if we layer these segments together with only these metrics, we can actually see PMAX performance
Yeah.
again very early on. It just those kind of things I think are really
Yeah.
valuable to share because
Yeah.
now we're getting insights that we didn't before, but we had to unfortunately hack it together because
Yeah.
those there wasn't an easier way to do it. I think that stuff, but personally, I mean, I think it's very easy to kind of get trapped into the social comparison stuff when you get into social media. And if that isn't helping you to, is that not motivating to you, then why are you going to fill your brain with stuff that's
Yeah.
just going to bring you down? Or you're going to think, oh man, I'm so behind. There's all these people doing these things. But mostly for me personally, Michael, like just me, I just, there's only so much value there, and I just get so exhausted with clickbait stuff that I
Yeah.
just get tired of
Yeah.
rolling my eyes and just like, oh god,
And
this
it's the
isn't
same
helpful.
stuff. It's the same stuff, unfortunately. And look, I think we're just getting old and cynical, mate. You just kind of
Probably,
get to a
probably.
point where, like, you got to be open minded enough. Like, I'm always open minded with it, but then I'm also like, what we're doing's working.
Hmm.
And the natural evolution comes from doing the work. It's not going to be some third party, some person I've never met with the clients that I never see of theirs. Like, reality is most people who are doing advertising are either working in house at an agency or they're making less than $10,000 a month, which means they're probably either not really good at running heaps of clients because $10,000 really isn't that much, or that they've got low paying clients and they're probably in industries that are that. So it's probably not as relatable because just because it's all Google ads and advertising does not mean it's like linear across the board that one strategy will plug into another industry and just fit in like a Lego block. It doesn't work
Yeah.
like that. Even e-commerce, like you'd know that you specialize in e-commerce, but yes, you've got some probably universal themes, but every business is different. Like just because they're e-commerce and using Google ads does not mean that anything's the same. It's a different business. It's a different product. So like there's universal themes, but never assume that, oh, like, oh, this person does this strategy and they claim it works all the time for them. So if it doesn't work for me, there's something wrong with me. No, it
Yeah.
doesn't work like that. That's why you need direct experience and know the client's data, work on the client, speak to them, find where those loops are and bridge those gaps, not just like, oh, this checklist said I should have been doing this data API thing for, you know, if we get a million orders, but we only get 20 a month.
Yeah.
So,
I thought of something like, for me, I didn't consciously realize that I'm doing this, but maybe this would help other people when you're looking at content for whatever service you're providing, SEO, social ads, whatever. If you see content and it gives you a physical feeling of like, ooh, that's interesting. Like I'm curious how that would work in this situation for this client, whatever. That already is a good sign. But like the difference between, ooh, that's interesting, I wonder how that would work, and a feeling of anxiety, I think
yeah,
that's a big thing to look for, because if the post is triggering anxiety for you, it's there's probably a lot going on. Again, we're not psychiatrists.
yeah.
Disclaimer. Consult a
I
medical
am.
professional.
Medicate yourself with alcohol and drugs.
But really, like I didn't think about it, but really that's a compass that I use, is that physical reaction. If it's something that's interesting because it seems a person is clever and they're showing their results, they're showing how it was tested, they're giving disclaimers, things like that. It's a good feeling. I go, that's interesting. I wonder how that would work for client A, B, and C. If it's a trigger of like anxiety, either because I'm annoyed by it because it's just like clickbait BS that there's no substance there, or if it's like I'm just, oh man, I feel like this is way over my head. Like if I'm deep down the rabbit hole of data science, for example, that's probably also not great either, because that means the content provider might be the content either might be just over your head and is what it is, or it could be that they're not actually creating any value there. They're just it's almost like as the kids say, flexing, right? They're just sort of like
Yeah.
flexing that, oh, this could be done this way, but is it really necessary? Michael is a fan of simplicity. Well, a lot of us should be as well, and I think that is still something that should be in there. Like even if it's a complicated subject, if you can't digest it, if the audience can't digest it in a way that they can utilize, I would question whether that content is really truly valuable. So
Yeah.
that's just also something to add
It's
in
good
there.
to flex, mate. It's good to flex. Okay. Well, let's flex and roll this up, mate. Cory, this was an awesome chat, mate. How can people
Yeah.
find you?
Yeah. My site is adsbycory.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Spotify.
Beautiful. And Michael Nadalin on LinkedIn, marketlead.com.au, MarketLead on YouTube as well. I'm releasing more and more content now. Not the in account ones, like where you're clicking buttons. That's boring. It's strategy of stuff that's actually working, because I don't have time to be blurring out data. So, Cory, mate, awesome chat.
Yes.
I hope you guys enjoyed it. I definitely did. I
Yes.
learned. So that's the main thing.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll
See you
see you in the
guys.
next one.